I'm resident of Collinwood, Joel Saints for YouTube, joined by my buddy Patrick McCray, author of the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. We are here to discuss 1841 Parallel Time, episode 1234. But before we do, me and Patrick had wanted to read The Last Sunset from his Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. We had meant to read it from the Seaview Terrace, but we had some technical difficulties. Go ahead, my friend.
You wanted me to read this, my friend. You picked out pieces for me to read, and this was one of the ones that you picked out. You're very firm about this. Why this one?
Because Ben Cross, I've only seen Ben Cross 2 times. One is Chariots of Fire, and the other was as Barnabas Collins in the 1991 revival series. And, you know, I love Jonathan Frid, but I think what Ben Cross really did, a lot of and don't get me wrong, I know how accomplished Ben Cross was, but he still could have crumbled under that pressure of playing the character that was already pre-existed. But he did such a great job because, and really a lot of great reasons. Yes, he had great writers, but he played the character his own way. And he wasn't, we know Mark B. Perry's working on a sequel series. This was a reboot. So he's not playing the same Barnabas as Jonathan. So he's able to bring his own style, his own sense of swagger, give Barnabas his own true feeling for the 90s. And it felt 90s in every way, shape, and form, the way he did it.
It's true. It's true. So I was going out to Seaview Terrace, and Jewel thought, maybe I should read some stuff from there. Yeah, and so he selected a batch of pieces, and this was going to be the last one. Unfortunately, Seaview Terrace has big spaces, especially in the social areas where there's good Wi-Fi. And so it was very difficult to find some place that had good Wi-Fi and where I could have some quiet. And so I sort of compromised, and it was really tough to tell whether or not the ambient noise was picking up. And so as I was finishing reading these, I was reading them more and more aggressively, trying to just overcome the incredible blossoming sound that just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And finally, I just kind of, I won't say I went Christian Bale on it, but because I didn't lose 75 pounds, but I thought, I don't want to be in the middle of the Ben Cross, obituary and have someone, hooting and hollering about Humberdale on a straight O or something like that. So, so it was best that we keep it for another time. And this is that time. These are always a strange honor to write. I mean, you don't want to be writing them, but it is a chance to, I hope, put into words why these people are often so significant and why their deaths and lives mattered. So with Ben Cross, it was especially memorable for reasons I say in the essay, and then afterwards for the fact that his daughter contacted me and thanked me for writing it, and that was very humbling. So this is Ben Cross in Memoriam. He was the last of his kind, truly. A regal actor for fantasy roles that required a star to speak clearly, command the room, and, shave and bathe. They were parts that called for a man of both truth and imagination, a master of theatrical size and total sincerity. He was Captain Nemo. He was Ambassador Sarek. He was Barnabas Collins. While he was never the first to essay those roles, he had the insightful integrity of a man who made each totally original. For some, he was their Captain Nemo. and their Ambassador Sarek. And although the productions in which he essayed the parts are not the definitive versions, Ben Cross delivered performances that were as indelible as those who originated the parts. For many of us, he was our Barnabas Collins. Not that we weren't deeply familiar with Jonathan Frid, but the 1991 series spared no expense to give us all of the corners cut in the 1960s. It was a reward for loyalty. Although it was not the original, it was the creator of the show standing atop the towering successes of the Herman Wouk miniseries, determined to make every element the finest he could. Star Trek returned with Patrick Stewart in the lead. Well, Dan Curtis saw Gene Roddenberry's Patrick Stewart and raised him a Ben Cross, matured beyond Chariots of Fire, capable of bringing equal classical artistry to television fantasy's other great saga. And he was every bit Stewart's equal. He was ours because for many of us, Dark Shadows left the air before we were born. But as with Next Generation, we had the excitement of following the production through the initial announcement to the first photo of the next Barnabas Collins. Cross's performance matched that first soulful photo. Intelligent and ferocious, he lacked Jonathan Frid's endearing neurosis, but that allowed him the chance to explore the role of Barnabas Collins with his own judgment. Both men are martyrs to loss and betrayal, but while Frid was determined to rebuild as Barnabas, Cross was bent on revenge. It's a less subtle performance in that sense, but wholly appropriate for the beginning of an arc that would only last a tad over 3 months. His game was all too brief. His performance matched it, burning hot and fast, but it was never without delightful humor and humanity. This is what he brought to Dark Shadows. His Barnabas had a texture, energy, and life all its own, and as such was Richard Burton to Frid's Laurence Olivier. They gave two vastly different interpretations of the great man, and thus neither encroached on the other. Instead, they are colleagues, and they both gave us the finest performances in the role that we could want. And the same for his Nemo, the same for his Sarek. At 72, the loss is stunningly premature. It is exceeded only by our fortune that if batons were to be passed, his was the hand to grasp them.
Really, really good.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you. Yeah. It's literally the least we could do.
Yeah, I'm glad we did it because that's the one that I picked last. And
I know.
And Ben Cross, I'm glad you put something in there for Ben Cross because, I mean, especially because you put a whole thing in there about the 91 revival, which was really good. I love your Jim Fay retrospective. He was a great Willie Loomis.
He's terrific. He's very underrated. I mean, if you come to the show wanting John Carlin, you will be disappointed. If you come to the show wanting a very fresh interpretation of Willie Loomis, you will not be disappointed. We have hundreds of hours of John Carlin as Willie Loomis. So it's not as if it got sucked out of every box set there is, and oh no, we've deep faked in Jim Fife over everything. No, you'll never get John Carlin again. Today, Dark Shadows. Tomorrow, Cagney and Lacey. Ha ha! No, that's ridiculous. So, I really like him. And it actually went backwards in the book, Jewel. I knew that I wanted to include the cross obituary, and at first it was just the cross obituary. It was just like at the end. And then I thought, you know what, to hell with it. Let's put in the 91 pieces and make this something more comprehensive. But the wacky part is I put the Ben Cross thing before those pieces rather than after. For most of the time, you put these things after. But I thought, no, let's talk about why he's emotionally significant. And then we look at the pieces, and that gives us a little bit more to go on.
I'm glad you did it that way because it pays compliment to not just Ben Cross, the actor who played Barnabas. It gives a tribute to everybody who was a part of the revival as well, doing it after the Memoriam, which is really cool.
I agree. I think it went very well, and I'm happy that we got to do it. So that's that.
Yes. We're going to do 1841, episode 1234. Really interesting. Grayson Hall narrates this episode. It picks up where it obviously left off. You see Melanie and and Carrie.
Sorry.
Carrie's having a vision. She has the ability to see things, second sight, if you will, or also see into the past a bit. And Melanie asks her to help her find who her mother is. She's coming close until Julia interrupts them. Great job by Grayson Hall. Obviously, every time you hear somebody narrate a Dark Shadows episode, it means their character is in said episode, which is great. So Grayson Hall is front and center in this. I love how she's left laying by the end of it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But, also, Christopher Pennock is in this episode up in the tower room. I'll get into him in a second. I love how he's wrapping the rope around his head. What did you think of this episode? I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No. I'd actually like to hear a little bit more of what you have to say about it. I'm thrilled by your ability to invest so deeply. For me, this episode is a little bit of a tease.
Yeah.
They really better deliver in the upcoming episodes, because this was just like watching Dan Curtis wind it up one more time.
It almost feels like a filler episode, but what they're doing is they're setting up for the next episode, and you can tell because the way Gabriel's like wrapping the thing around his hand. You also have between Carrie Stokes and Julia Collins, she goes, I know you saw something. You saw a face. I know you're lying to me. And it happens in the cottage, which I love their interaction. And so Carrie is a bad liar. She cannot lie to people well at all. And I like that about her. It means she's meant to be honest. She unfortunately has to lie to Melanie. Now, I love how, too, like you're saying, Dan Curtis is winding up. We do not get to reveal in this episode who Melanie's mother is by Carrie at all, which I love. Again, you're right. Dan Curtis in this entire episode is winding up the audience. Really,
he is.
What did you think of Carrie? Kathy Cody, just really, really great to see her coming to her own throughout this entire arc.
This is another Kathy Cody special.
Yep.
I mean, it really is. And she, pardon me, it's a little smudgy there. She puts in a very mature performance. Not since Victoria was at the seance where she was possessed and saying faster, 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 have I seen someone so viscerally invested in a psychic vision. And there is a sense of real theatrical freedom that Kathy Cody has in this. And Kathy Cody has not really been on the scene of fandom, and there are a lot of reasons kind of floating around involving that. and I'm not here to really comment on those. I can definitely say that in looking at this episode, especially the trance sort of reading that she gives as she's talking about, yes, I see these things. I have a pretty good idea of your parentage. Really, really underlines the fact that it's a shame either Hollywood didn't know what to do with her, or she didn't know what to do with Hollywood, or one thing or the other, because it's a very, very forthright performance.
I think that's the thing too. They had a lot of potential. Even Dan Curtis himself had a lot of potential with her. And when they ended Dark Shadows, if I could go back in time and give Dan Curtis one piece of advice, and take Kathy Cody and tell the Angelique prequel. Make her be a young Angelique.
That sounds like a great idea. And, today, this is the sort of thing that Curtis would have franchised the hell out of.
Yep.
And, I mean, how many times has Saw been revived? And even horror series that we think are kind of like, I don't know. Wait 10 minutes, and there's a whole a startling new vision of horror. Taking the Saw franchise into realms never dreamt of. The kind of thing. How do they make 10 of them?
They're it's going to be Saw 10 this fall.
What on earth does Jigsaw have left to do?
By the way, Tobin Bell's coming back for that.
You know what? There is more hope for people stricken with cancer in the Saw movies than in, all of the nuns' guitar music that could possibly be played in oncology wards. And I'm not giving a hard time to people with cancer. My mother died of cancer. But I am giving a hard time to nuns with guitars. Anyway, but seriously, what? I mean, in another thrilling installment of the Saw franchise, Tobin Bell picks up a check, and God bless him for doing it.
I own all of the movies, and I'll probably pick this one up. I enjoy them; they're very, very well done. Chris Rock's Saw is underrated, by the way. If you ever want to check it out, Spiral they called it. So,
is that about? Does he go to work for Honey Baked Ham?
No.
And invent the kind of way that they cut the spiral cut on the ham?
No, but a woman is smothered. Her face is melted and smothered to death in hot wax.
Why couldn't it have been done in hot ham?
Very, very true. Very,
okay.
Very true.
I like history. I have a history with the producer of the Saw movies.
Really?
He's never even met me. But several steps removed. But his father was a family friend. And his father was the most powerful unknown man in Hollywood. His name was Richard Hefner. And he was the Jack Valenti was kind of the face of the Motion Picture Association of America, the ratings board. Dick Hefner was some of the real power, and yet he was a tremendous intellectual and hosted a wonderful PBS television show, I think called The Open Mind, and was a brilliant scholar. And his son Daniel Jason Hefner. So you got the guy who invents the rating system, or helps invent the rating system, and then his son creates some of the most difficult to rate movies ever, or doesn't create it, but certainly produces it. Daniel Jason Hefner. Never met him, but I did meet with his secretary, and she was very pretty and very smart.
Very nice. Joan Bennett is in this episode as well.
Yeah, you wrangle it back in, Joel. Right?
Yes, yeah. Flora, I really like how her version of Flora here is very different, and it feels a bit like Elizabeth, but we know it's not. It's very different from the Flora we get in the other version of 1840.
Sure.
You know, which is nice. And
Yeah.
I like how she's defending Gabriel, even though she doesn't see Gabriel wants to strangle her to death.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you know, and it's naturally, she's really goes to the mat for him, showing the thing that she has in common with primary time Flora, which is some very bad judgment sometimes about people. Very a strange naivete. But the only way she could really be like Flora in primary time is if she became a 78-year-old drag queen who was goofed up on helium. Because when I think of Flora in 1840 primary time, it's the only thing that occurs to me.
I secretly think they should have wrote a romance for Flora
and
James Storm's character in 1840.
Yeah, your kids think it's hilarious.
Yeah, my daughter, she's laughing at something else. So, but
well, you know, Jewel, you finally revealed your perversity, and they love it. They love it. Are the kids listening in? Is that what's going on?
No, my son's playing Minecraft. My daughter's listening to something on her phone. So she's laughing at probably something she's watching. So she's not laughing at us or me. But with also like the what happened? Hello? What happened? What happened? I just lost Patrick completely. Completely. Hello?